Hi there, I'm Bob Eubanks, and I'm in Owensboro, Kentucky, and very happy to be here because tonight we're going to play a not-so-newlywed game with a bunch of people, and we're going to have so much fun. Then, at the end of the show, someone's going to have a chance to win $100,000, and we hope they do. Newlywed Game started in 1966.
Yes, it's the Newlywed Game. And now, let's meet our newlywed couples for today.
A couple of guys by the name of Nicholson and Muir had lunch one day, and they wrote on a napkin, "Husbands predict wives, wives predict husbands." And they gave that napkin to ABC. ABC gave it to Chuck Barris, and they had a bunch of auditions with disc jockeys, and I happened to win that one. Never been on television before.
Bob Eubanks. Thank you very much, Daviess, and good afternoon, everybody.
It was the first time that we were looking into people's bedrooms on television, and they wanted me to say "make love." I wouldn't say it because I didn't think you should have to explain that to your children until you were ready to do so. So we came up with the word whoopee.
Gentlemen, where specifically will your wife say is the weirdest place she's ever gotten the urge to make whoopee?
In the car.
Car?
Yeah, we were coming home on the freeway one day, and she says, "You ready?"
On the freeway, right? I'm going to take the side streets hereafter. I'll tell you what.
And Frank Sinatra had a hit record at the time of making whoopee, so that's how that all was born.
Does it surprise you when people say it back to you?
No, it'll be on my tombstone, I'm sure. But I'm very, I had a great time, and we shot one Newlywed Game for Game Show Network after the year 2000, so I can say that I did the same format with original programming for 5 decades.
Back right after this.
What do you think about the direction of game shows today? There's not a lot on during daytime. You do have Pat Sajak at nighttime.
Yeah, and Alex,
Yeah, sure.
I couldn't do Jeopardy. There's hosts for shows and shows for hosts. Barker and I were rascals. We couldn't do Jeopardy. I can't even pronounce some of those names, for God's sakes. But there's some good game show hosts out there today. Chris Harrison, who does The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and also Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, I think is quite good, because you have to be careful. The game show host is not the cake. He's only the icing on the cake. And if the host tries to outstar the format or the contestants, then it doesn't work. And so I learned from Johnny Carson that you stay back and you watch, and then you try to make something out of it. But the show is not you. The show is the format and the contestants. I learned that real quick.
I did see you. I was looking on YouTube at old clips with you and them, and I saw you on The Price is Right. He came on down.
Yeah, he wasn't real happy I was on The Price is Right that day.
Bob, I tell wait a minute, you like him more than you like me. Bob, you can't be a contestant.
$400.
No, Bob, no. You haven't even seen the prize yet.
I don't care.
$400. Come on.
Game show hosts don't mix. We don't, hang out together or anything like that. I'll have dinner with Pat Sajak. My wife and I have dinner with Sajak's maybe once every couple of months. But other than that, Wink Martindale, his wife used to be my secretary.
Oh, wow.
And she would listen to the radio. And I said, "Turn that stuff off." She said, "I can't. He gives me a test every night."
What are you doing here in the Price is Right studio? Now, what are you up to?
I'm very excited to tell you that beginning January the 6th, we'll be on right before The Price is Right with Card Sharks, and I'm going to do a show for CBS, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story. I was doing a show called Card Sharks at CBS, And Barker and I would share a dressing room. When he was there, I wasn't. When I was there, he wasn't. So up on the wall was a really elaborate carved wooden sign that said WGMC on it. And being the rascal that I am, I took it off the wall and I put it under the couch. Well, I'm out at the ranch and we're roping out at the ranch and I get an emergency phone call from the producer. He said, "Where's Barker's sign?" I said, "What sign?" He said, "Don't mess with me. He won't go on until he gets the sign." I said, "Oh, for gosh sakes, it's under the couch." Gee. I said, "What does that mean, WGMC?" And he says, "World's Greatest MC."
A little bit of an ego.
No.
No.
But a very talented man, I will say that.
Higher it is.
Yes, yes.
700.
That's a tough cry, but I'm going to go 300 higher.
300. Stepping
300
up.
higher.
Is it higher than the 6? It is.
Yes.
So, is there a moment in your career that really stands out?
I think the moment in my career is not what you expect. About 4 years ago, I saw the President of the United States salute Paul McCartney and Merle Haggard at the Lincoln Center. And I produced the Beatles concerts for 3 years, the only 3 years they toured America. I did Southern California. And I was with Merle Haggard. I was his exclusive promoter for 10 years. Everywhere he went, I went. And to look and see the president saluting Paul McCartney and Merle Haggard was a big moment in my life because I realized that I had something to do with their careers. And that was really cool for me. So that is a moment that really stands out. First day I did Newlywed Game. When it went on the air, Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara was giving a speech for CBS and NBC, and ABC premiered Newlywed Game that day. We had a 17 share. We had Super Bowl numbers, you know. So I had a hit television show, and that was a big deal. That was a big deal. But after I did the first show, Chuck Barris came to me and he said, "Boy, I want to talk to you." I said, "What's up?" He says, "You've just done something I've never seen anybody do before." I said, "What'd I do?" He said, "You went a half hour without blinking." That's how scared I was.
I would have been scared too.
Yeah.
I love Merle Haggard. I've saw him 3 times.
Well, Hag was he and I never had a crossword in 10 years. And on my bucket list, I would love to produce his film. Because here's a man that was born in a boxcar. He escaped from 13 institutions by the time he was 18. He spent 2 years and 9 months in San Quentin. He lived in every hobo jungle in the country. And in 1971, he became Entertainer of the Year. In 72, I took him to the White House. So it's a wonderful story. And he had a difficult time as a human being, but was a genius when it came to music. You know, I'm so fortunate. God is really on my side. I'm so blessed. You know, I'm still out there doing it. But what I learned is that you have to take what you know how to do and apply it in other areas. I have contemporaries that sit home waiting for the phone to ring. It's just not going to ring. So, you know, I took my rodeo world and I applied it to doing the Rose Parade each year. And I did it for 38 years, but I knew about horses. I happen to believe that the business that I'm in is the most wonderful business in the world. The reason being is because there's room for everybody. What you have to do, though, if you want to get into the entertainment business, is that you have to have a goal, but if that doesn't work out, take your strengths and put it into another area, because there's room for everybody. It's a marvelous business, it really is. And I would only say just don't give up. I think the toughest part of my business is the actors and actresses. I think that's very difficult. But being in the entertainment world, whether it's technology, whether it's journalism, whether it's live shows, there's room for everybody. You know, my oldest son, Trace, was a stuntman at one time, became an LA County fireman. My daughter was a script supervisor in the movies. And my young son, Corey, as I mentioned, the #1 stunt driver in the industry. But my 14-year-old son doesn't want to have anything to do with showbiz. He wants to be an attorney. But my wife was an actress and a model and a singer. So we're a showbiz family, I guess.
So what does the future hold for you?
Oh, God. He's probably looking down and saying, I don't need a game show host yet. I think. But anyway, what's the future hold? Well, here's what I'm doing now. I speak to corporate America. I do a pretty funny 1-hour keynote address called It's All About People, and has a really strong message. So I do that. And then I do the Not So Newlywed game out on the road, like we're doing here. And then I've put together a show, and you can go to www.backstagewiththebeatles and then push on to see the video. I put together a show called Backstage with the Beatles, and I have a Beatle band on stage with me, and I tell stories that lead up to music. I'll give you an example. When the Beatles broke up, Paul McCartney was really upset. And he had a dream one night, and in the dream, his mother appeared, and he had lost her when he was 14 years old to breast cancer. But she said to him in the dream, she says, Paul, it's going to be okay, Paul. Just let it be band music. So I've got an 1.5-hour show like that, and we've only done 2 of them, but we sold them out, both of them, and so I'll do some more of that. But I'm also watching my young son grow up, and my beautiful wife, who was a #1 wedding planner in Southern California. I saw her win $100,000 on Star Search, and I said, I better marry that chick, I think. But I'm very blessed. God is on my side.
Soon followed up with the Newlywed Game, which also gleaned humor from regular folks.
What animal, Lisa, did you inherit your rump from?
I said her mother.
What are you looking at my mother's rump for? It's not even big.
You can't miss it. The thing's the size of a Buick. You can't even get through the door.
It's not.
It's big. It's the size of a Buick.
Big bone.
Barris took pride in avoiding the usual game show hosts. When Bob Eubanks was tapped for the Newlywed Game, he was the youngest person ever to MC a game show.
After the first show, Chuck Barris came to me, and he says, I need to talk to you. I said, what's the matter? He says, you've just done something I've never seen anybody do before. I said, what'd I do? He said, you went a half-hour without blinking. So I had to write myself a note. We'll be back with more of the Newlywed Game, and it says, blink, I mean, I go, blink, blink. That's how frightened I was. I was scared to death.
See the heavy drain upon the filler resources.
The Newlywed Game had the good fortune to premiere at the exact moment Defense Secretary Robert McNamara was addressing the nation. NBC and CBS carried the speech live.
From Hollywood, here come the Newlyweds!
But ABC went with the Newlyweds. The nation did too. That first episode had ratings to rival a Super Bowl. Both the dating and Newlywed Games were risque for the times, reflecting the very young and freewheeling staff that Barris had assembled. He was among the first TV producers to tap into the changing national culture of the 1960s. And it made Barris extremely successful.
Newlywed Game was a comedy show that happened to have a game there. And that's really what it is. You know, nobody talks about wow, did you see that great prize they won? Or wow, they sure knew each other. No, they only talk about the funny stuff.
In coins, how much money could your belly button hold? Sherry?
I've never tried that. I guess I would say a dime.
A dime. He said your belly button could hold $1. He said a big old silver dollar is what he said.
Give him a ride home, too.
He figured it out, man. He was doing reality television back then before we even knew what the word reality meant. He had great instincts. Great instincts.
Barris's unique instincts came at just the right time for ABC. A perennial third place also ran. The network was in financial trouble.
Newlywed Game and Dating Game and Let's Make a Deal, I believe, literally saved ABC.
We took that network from here to here because every show, not only did we get that time period, but every show following us zoomed up.
I remember Michael Eisner was the head of West Coast daytime television. He came up to me one time at a party. He says, "You're very important to me." He says, "You're very important to me." Because he realized that these three shows, Dating Game, Newlywed Game, and Let's Make a Deal, literally saved the network at the time.
I remember it was so much fun going into his offices because everybody was young around him. They were excited. They were exuberant. They loved what Chuck was doing. He had started with practically nothing, and all of a sudden, he was the king, quote unquote, of ABC.
We've got some fabulous newlywed couples to come out.